Hey, so welcome to the shop. Today we are in LRC filming inside, so bear with me a little bit. Today, as I promised, we are at the end of our electrical and we are going to start talking about electrical repairs. So after you've diagnosed any electrical problems that you may have had in doing your lighting circuit, or as we have done before, doing the boost sensor, and you have found an open or a short, these are the things that you're going to go into now, which is electrical repair. So one of the first things, always, like I say, you want to have your manufacturer's book. So the book for your truck, because you need those specs. Those specs are going to tell you what kind of repairs are appropriate for that particular wire. They may say that, they may not, but usually it'll tell you what kind of connectors and things like that you can use. When you're starting out with the repair, one of the things you want to do is you want to gauge the wire. You want to know what kind of wire gauge you have, or what kind of gauge of wire that you're using, because every wire has a specific size because it needs to carry so many volts and be able to handle so many amps that are passing through that particular wire. So you definitely want to match sizes of your wires if you're doing something such as splicing the wire, or if you're tying into an existing circuit. You want to make sure you have the right wire gauge that can handle the amount of voltage and amps that will be passing through that wire, or else that wire will heat up and burn up and cause more damage. So one of the things we want to go over is basically doing the proper repair. So one, having the correct wire, whether you're going to be using it to splice in, or cutting out a section to replace, or cutting out a damaged section to replace with wire. You want to have the proper gauge of wire. You want to have your manual for the manufacturer's specs, and the next thing you want is the proper tools. You need the proper tools to do the job. If you don't have the proper crimps or wire strippers or wire cutters, you may break strands within the wire or damage the wire, and that will reduce the current carrying capacity of that wire and increase resistance, which basically will result into another fail down the road. So you want to make sure you have the proper tools when making your wire repair. Now, some of the tools that you can utilize are joiners. Some of the joiners are meant to basically pierce the insulation of the wire. So they're basically kind of like a plastic box. I'll picture one right here, and they have kind of a split that'll go down, and they will join the wire. Now, these are very temporary, not a permanent joiner. A lot of problems come from using these joiners. So this is something where if you are out on the road, you have a light go out, some kind of wire breakage or something to that effect, where you need to make a quick repair to get you from point A to point B so that you can get the proper repair, you can use the wire joiners. The problems that come from these is that, depending on the size, they might not make proper contact within the joiner. If the wire is too big, it may damage the joiner, or there may be too much insulation for it to pierce, so it won't make the connection, or the wire could be too small and not make the connection. The wires, when they are pierced, they are easily pulled out, almost like using strippers. So they can be easily pulled out. The other thing is that they are not sealed for weather. So if you're using them, they're not properly sealed for weather. Again, that's why they're only temporary. If you continue to use them, you're looking at creating more faults. Another type of repair would be the use of a crimp sleeve. There are several different types of crimp sleeves. Just the regular crimp sleeve, you want to make sure that you use the correct size crimper. The problems that can come from that is that if you're using certain crimpers, you don't know the force that you're applying. You don't know if it's enough of a force or if it's crimping down properly. There are crimpers that will allow you to crimp it properly and give a specified force, making it fairly easy on you. Also, when you have an unknown amount of force, you are causing unknown damage inside that crimp. So you may not get the proper crimping, you may crimp the wire too much, you may break some of the wires on the inside. And again, these crimp joints are not weatherproof. Now, there are weatherproof types of crimp joints. There's a heat shrink crimp sleeve that you can put over and crimp it down, and then use the heat gun to shrink the tubing over it, also giving a good weather seal. Now that works, and when you're going to that kind of stuff, you're increasing the price of each of those things. So, you know, the better you get, the more you're going to pay. Another kind of connector is a solder heat shrink, where you can place the two wires in, heat shrink it down, and that heat will also melt the solder into the wire, creating a better connection. And these are better because they are weatherproof, they give a tighter seal, they don't pull apart as easily with a tremendous amount of force. Now, another way to repair your wire, you can go into soldering. Soldering is usually the normal method of repairing the wire. When you're doing soldering, you want to make sure that you're using rosin core solder. That's basically adheres to the wire better. It basically contains the flux and whatnot that you need for it to stick to the wire. One of the first things you want to do when using the soldering gun is you want to place a little bit of the solder on the tip of the soldering gun. That's tinning the tip. Then you want to place the tip under the wire. This will heat up the wire, and you want to get a nice even heat. You don't want to burn any of the wires. Again, that would be creating another problem for the future where it could be cause a failure. You heat up metal enough, it'll just shatter. So you want to slowly heat the wire properly. Then you want to apply the solder onto the wire. That solder will wick right into the wire and get right into the cracks, creating a nice firm grip. Now, before you solder, the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you have a good mechanical connection on the wire. So you want to make sure that they're twisted together properly. You don't want to put too much of a twist. Again, don't want to break the wires depending on the wires that you're trying to solder together. So you want to give a good mechanical connection. Now, other than soldering, of course, once you've soldered, there's the ability to heat shrink, and there is heat shrink tubing that you can place over the wire and shrink it down, sealing the connector, so that now that you have a good mechanical connection, you've soldered it together to create a good electrical connection, then you heat shrink over it to weatherproof the connection. Another kind of repair is connector repairs. And there's two types of connectors that you can use. There's the non-insulated terminals and insulated terminals, and there are several different types of terminals that you can use that are insulated and non-insulated. A lot of the non-insulated terminals are crimp style. I think most of them are crimp style terminals. Some may come with a little bit of solder inside, so that you can heat it up and create that bond. Some of the non-insulated terminals, you can apply solder over it to help with that bond. So not only can you crimp it down, you can apply the solder right over it. And again, using heat shrink tubing to seal it and make it weatherproof. The next thing you want to take into consideration is what kind of wire repair, or what are you repairing, essentially. A regular wire in a harness, you make you choose the type of repair that you're making, and you make that repair, but you have to be considerate about what the wire is going to. Something such as like the CAN bus wire, which has a twist in it. When you make your repair to something like the CAN bus wire, you want to continue that twist. You want to maintain that twist, because that twist was put in the wire for a reason. So you want to maintain that twist when making your repairs. All right. So thank you for joining me for our electrical repair, and we'll see you in the next videos where we're starting HVAC.
Yo.